Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about power and energy supply for my home. Um, Unless you don't know, I'm living in Belgium and I have solar panels. And there's a good reason for that. In my home, I have a heat pump. I cook on electricity, I make warm water on electricity, so everything is on electricity. And with my solar panels, I can compensate my usage, especially in the winter when my heating uses a lot of energy. And this was possible because we had something called like a backwards running electricity meter. And because it was an analog one, a really mechanical one, with a disc that's spinning around, and you cannot stop it when it turns back when I inject power to the grid. Now, what happens in Europe? There is a ruling that we need to switch to digital meters. Of course, digital meters would not run backwards. They can measure your consumption of energy, they can measure your injection of energy, but will not run backwards. So it was a very large debate here in the Flanders and Belgium, because nobody with solar panels wants digital meters, of course, because now at the end I produce around 6,000 kilowatt hours a year and I use around 5,800. So at the end I didn't need to pay anything except for a tax, which was based on the peak performance of my inverter, which is 5 kilowatt in this case. So what did the government said? Okay, we need to push that digital electricity meter, but to convince people of still investing in green energy, in solar panels, we will give them the guarantee of a 15 years backwards turning meter, even when it's a digital meter. In fact, what they will do is they take your consumption minus your injection, and that was the thing you're going to pay. What happened now, and that's a very technical and legal thing, but at the end, some regulators in Belgium went to court and get a court a ruling saying that it's not in the constitution, or that it's against the law, that rule, and it's not fair for all the other people who doesn't have solar panels and needs to pay for the distribution net and stuff like that. It's a long story, but long story short, I have a digital meter. Why? As you all know, I have a Tesla, so I had to go from monophase to three-phase power, and eventually the company, the electricity company, Fluvius in this case, replaced my analog mechanical meter with a digital one. No problem. That was in December. I had that guarantee of the government, 15 years, no problem. But now, yeah, they broke their promise a little bit. A lot of people are upset about it. But of course, let's keep staying positive and see what we can do to yeah to ease the burden a little bit. How we can use consumption easy better. Consuming energy on the right moment, and our batteries are a solution, yes or no? Let's have a look. So what do we have at our home? Is some solar panels. I have solar panels of 335 watts peak. I have 18 of them. They are lying in 3 strings and are connected DC wise, later on more, to my SMA Sunny Boy 5K inverter. This is connected AC wise to my household appliances. And what I also installed, and that gives me some really good details that I'm using now, is an SMA Energy Meter. And I installed that directly for my differential, and then I have here the grid. So it measures all the power that is consumed. The most important here, of course, is that it is one system. So it knows also what's being produced on a certain moment. Because if you just place an energy meter, it measures the result of production minus what I'm using. So you're only seeing the result. If, for example, if I produce 3 kilowatt hours and I'm using 2, then your energy meter will see that I'm producing 1. It didn't know how many things I produced. That 1 could evenly be the results of producing 2 and using 1. And that information is really important to know. So I also will show you my energy app. I have the Sunny portal, which gives you an overview of what I did today. I can go to energy balance and see what is the consumption today. Today was not a great day. I only used or produced 6 kilowatt hours, where I used 4.2 kilowatt hours currently. If I'm looking, for example, to a day last year, let's say I pick one in August, the 25th of August. Yeah, it was also not a good day. Now let's take a day in 2021, the 11th of May, and what you see here is I produced that day 33 kilowatt hours. I consumed myself 7.6, and I injected into the grid 25 kilowatt hours. But also on that day, I used 11 kilowatt hours from the grid. Where is that coming from? You see here, if I draw some lines, this is when I produces energy from my solar panels, but I'm also using in the morning and in the evening, and sometimes having a peak where I can where my solar power is not sufficient. So what I will do, or what I will try, is to get my self-consumption rate up. So currently it's and that's stated below, on 23%. If, for example, I can cover that 11 and put that over here, because I feed it in 25 kilowatt hours, so that's sufficient enough to cover that. Then I will come to a self-consumption rate of 63%, around that. And how can I do that? First of all, getting as much as of those loads in this time frame. But of course, it will not work for everything, and there batteries come in handy. It's not for everyone. It's not economically for everyone. It's really depending on the data you have. So you really need to take this. I can export it to an Excel, take a graph out of it, and see. Let's see. I did that for me. I took all this data, put it in Excel, and make some calculations what the ideal battery would be, how many kilowatt hours I will cover or can potentially reuse, and not need to pay to the company. Because one important thing is that consuming energy from the company is 10 times more expensive than the price I get for the energy I inject into the grid. So let's have a look at the Excel I made. First of all, this is my monthly sums of those parameters. The total consumption, how many kilowatt hours I used, how many kilowatt hours I supplied internally, which means in this case my solar panels, which amount of power I needed to get from the grid, how many my PV installation generated, and how many power I have left and feed it into the grid. I have this for monthly. I have this also on a daily basis. So this is for every day, the same parameters. What I then did was looking for battery system. Later on more, but it will be a Victron system with Pylontech batteries. Those Pylontech batteries has a size of 2.2 kilowatt hours. If I place 4, I have a battery size of 8.8. There is a minimum state of charge I want to have in my batteries for the UPS function, but also in another video later on more of 50%, which means I have a usable capacity of 7.48 kilowatt hours. So if we take that into account and we first look on the monthly use phase. So what I did there, I assume that I can recoup everything. So if my external energy supplied by the grid is more than my grid feeding, yes, I can reduce everything what's in grid feeding. So I can reduce in this month 29 kilowatt hours, in this month 106 kilowatt hours. Of course, if my energy supplied is less than my grid feeding, I can only reuse or potentially reuse the energy supplied by the grid. That's, for example, you see here the difference in this month from out of April. I feed in more 84 kilowatt hours, and I'm only using from the grid 204, so I can potentially only recoup those 204, which means if I see this on a monthly basis, I will come to a potential reuse of energy of 1748 kilowatt hours. So that's the maximum I can reconsume. Of course, if my load changes, if it's increasing, if it's my consumption profile is changing, of course these parameters can be different. Then of course I will start looking this on a more detailed way, where I do this for every day. I check every day if that consumption is more than or that external supply more than my grid feeding, on yes or no. But also here he takes into account what's the potential size of the battery, because you have some days, of course, where your maximum amount you can reduce is 7.48, because that's the amount of the size of your battery. I cannot store those 16 kilowatt hours and reuse 7.96. I can only use 7.48 because of the size of my battery. Of course, this doesn't take into account that that the battery sometimes discharging during the day and again charges during that day, or I can have from one day to another day. For example, today it was a good day, but I don't use everything else. Yesterday, tomorrow is a bad day. Stuff like that. It doesn't take into account. So if I take those two parameters, if I see it on a daily basis, I potentially have a reuse capacity of 1,421 kilowatt hours. In a monthly basis, 1,700. Probably the real amount will be something between those two. If I then calculate that to my self-sufficient coefficient, currently I have over a year 33. With the battery on a daily basis, I will probably go to 58%. With the monthly, I have an error. For the monthly, I will go to 64%. Also, if I change the battery, I would say I don't place 4 but 6. You see, I go for 58 to 59. It's not that large difference, so I need to see if that's the investment worth. But this is really the data you need to decide if batteries are a good thing, yes or no. The real lesson here is, do you want to install a battery at home? You need to have data. You need to know what your consumption profile is. You need to know how much energy you inject, how much you consume from the grid from a certain moment. And that's the only way you can see if a battery is economically and eventually also ecologically good for you at your home. So if you are looking for a battery, the first thing you need to do, getting that data, place your energy meter, see what you get out. In the coming weeks, I will start installing that battery. I will also make some videos. Probably next week or in 2 weeks, I will make a video about designing my system with the Victron. What you need to take into account, because of course I have already some PV panels. What I'm going to do with that inverter? Do I going to replace different nails? That's something for next video. If you like my videos and you want to see the next ones, please subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them below into the comments. Thank you. See you next time.